I was gonna try, but guys, I have to put the glasses on. In today's video, we are going to ask 7 questions that every long-term boondocker needs to ask in order to have a proper checklist to live out in the middle of nowhere without hookups. It's really not as hard as you might think, and you don't even have to have solar. Welcome to the desert! Okay, this Real Talk Tuesday is a little bit out of place because if you're following our journey, we haven't quite made it to the desert in our travels yet, but we will very soon, so watch for that coming up. I think this weekend's video is about our Utah trip, and then coming down here we saw some pretty spectacular sights, but we are here in Phoenix now. Our journey videos run a few weeks behind so that we can edit it and all that jazz. But I'm going to talk about boondocking because here we are in Phoenix, Arizona, and we are once again full-time boondocking for the duration of our contract. So for the next 100 days, we will be without hookups. A lot of people have asked us, how do you make this work, especially with the family? And we have several videos that you can go and check out. Up here, we have a whole boondocking playlist, so make sure you check that out. It talks about how we find our exact spot, like how we look for our spots. It talks about whether boondocking is worth it financially. All that stuff you can find up here in the boondocking playlist. But today, I'm going to break it down real simple, 7 things that you need to consider when you are thinking about long-term boondocking. What I mean by long-term boondocking is like 2 weeks or more, maybe even 1 week or more. If you're only boondocking like 1 or 2 days at a time, you pretty much have everything on board that you need, and you probably can last that long before you need to refuel or do anything else. In last week's Real Talk Tuesday, we went over our expenditures of how much we spend RVing every month, and we even included our boondocking costs up there, and we found out that we actually boondock about 1/3 of the year. When it came down to it, it was 105 days of boondocking last year total. We do not have solar. We've traveled for almost 3 years. We've done boondocking every year, and we've never had solar. Do we want solar? Absolutely. It's very expensive. We just have never gone ahead with it. Really in my eyes now. Woo! It's been raining here in Phoenix for the last 3 days. Like really raining. Like I don't know if I can get my van out of our spot because the ground is so soft raining. And so the sun is welcome, but it is messing with my eyes. The first question is, where am I going to get my water? And also, sub-question, how am I going to store it? If you're boondocking for an extended period of time, you're going to go through your water pretty quickly. And especially if you have a family like we do, our family of 5 can go through water rather fast. How much water can you hold? Ours has 2 gray water tanks on board. We have a freshwater and then we have 2 gray waters. But you also have to consider how you are going to conserve on your water. So you might be asking questions like, where am I going to shower? Should I shower in my RV, or should I come up with a plan B, such as joining a gym? Or maybe you can take a shower at work if you're a travel nurse, which is what John is doing right now, which helps conserve on water. You want to make sure that you have a freshwater source somewhere nearby you, or that's in driving distance to go fill up. A lot of times RV parks will let you fill for a fee, so you can call around and check with those. There are occasionally some places where you can find potable water at different places like National Park, visitor centers, and things like that. So you'll want to scope out, use Google, that's your friend, figure out where you can find water and make sure that you have access to it. And also you're going to want something to store it with. We use a 60-gallon bladder that we've had for a while. It does have a rip in it that we repaired. We're due for a new one. We also use 6-gallon jugs of water that I can take to Walmart and fill up with purified water there for I think it's like 30 cents a gallon or something like that. So if all else fails and I can't find another water source, I just take the jugs to Walmart and fill those up, and that works for us. The next thing is, what are you going to do with that water once it goes through your system, like in your RV? If you're on BLM in Arizona like we are, then you are allowed to dump your gray water in some areas. You'll want to make sure that you check before you just do that. Another thing you can do is make sure that you move often enough that you can go to some place to dump in between moving to a different spot, which we also do. What am I going to do with my black tanks? You'll need to consider if you have a large black tank or a super small one that needs to be dumped often. There are alternatives to the regular RV toilets. You can get a composting toilet or an incinerating toilet, and then you don't have to worry as much as that, but you will have to plan in advance what you plan to do with your black waste when it gets full, because it'll get full. We can go 2 weeks with our black tanks, and so generally on BLM and state trust land here in Arizona, 2 weeks is the max you can stay. So we just dump it when we move. If we get into a spot where we can't, then we'll use the Schwagen and shuttle our waste to a dump station. That's kind of our last resort though. Next question, how am I gonna get power? If you don't have solar, you're definitely gonna need a generator. I don't think there's any way of getting around that if you're staying full-time. But you definitely want a generator. We have a Champion 3400 and it has done great. It's a dual fuel, so we can use propane or gasoline in it, and it has held up great for us. We'll say the more that you run it, the better that it runs. And when we're boondocking, it tends to work really well because we're using it all the time, at least daily. But we run it like for a few hours during the day, sometimes all day if I'm editing. I generally turn it off before I come to bed. If it's gonna be a really cold night, like in the teens, we may run it all night long so that we don't hurt our batteries, which is another thing to consider with your power is, do you have good batteries? We upgraded our batteries from a regular 12 volt lead acid battery to two 6 volt golf cart batteries. We do find that they last a little bit longer. Eventually we'd love to have lithium because it lasts like forever and you can drain it all the way down and all the good things, but they're very expensive. So for now we have the golf cart batteries and they're working great for us. You have solar, that's fantastic. We wish we had solar. Maybe someday we will. Have a generator. Where are you going to get your fuel? Is there a gas station nearby? Is there a place where you can go fill up your gas can to make sure that you are prepared to fuel your generator as often as you need to? Which leads me to my next question is, do you have enough fuel? This is a great question. Do you have enough fuel for your propane tanks and for your gasoline if you need to use that for your generator? Make sure that you are topped off. Make sure you know where to go get it. Usually cheaper to fill, but right now there's a propane shortage here where we're staying, which is odd. So propane is $3.99 a pound, which is crazy. Which means our fill-ups are $20 or more for a 20-pound tank. So we just went and traded ours in for 16 bucks at Walmart. Who knew that it would actually be cheaper to trade your propane tank in exchange instead of filling it? But whatever, you do what you gotta do. Groceries. You wanna make sure that you are someplace that's close enough to groceries where you can go and get your shopping done and that you feel comfortable leaving your RV to go do that. Okay, when you get really cold outside and you come in and realize that you forgot 2 items off of your list, then you have to film while you're editing. So the next one is laundry. You might want to consider where you're going to get your laundry done, especially if you're trying to conserve on water. You don't want to do it in your rig. Even if you have a washer and dryer, you probably don't want to run that while you're boondocking. So make sure you can access a laundry mat close by. And number 6, if you're working in the area, of course you want to make sure that you are close enough to your hospital. In our case, John is a travel nurse, so we want to make sure that we're not so far out that his commute time is really bad. An hour is our max. John has driven an hour before, even here in Phoenix when we stayed in Tonopah at Saddle Mountain. We love that area, but it's almost a solid hour drive for John to work, which is a little bit too far for us. So we go out there occasionally to meet up with people and say hello, but we don't stay there long term because it's just too far away. So you definitely want to look and make sure you're mapping that on Google when you're searching for a place to stay if you have to be tied to a location for your job. That's pretty self-explanatory. But the last one I want to talk about for just a minute, if you can hear me over this wind, is safety. So many people ask us, do we feel safe when we boondock? And the answer is yes, most of the time. Have there been a couple of times where we felt a little bit, yes, there definitely have been. They were not in the areas that you may think that we would feel a little off. But if we ever get that prickly feeling or that something's off, we just move. That's as simple as that. Watch where you park. Don't park in a wash. If you're out here in Arizona, it gets wet sometimes. You wouldn't think so. But like right now, my van is pretty much trapped here because I can't go anywhere because it's extremely muddy now that it has rained. We're not in a wash, but make sure that you're not in a wash or in a flood zone or any other place that's unsafe to be. We check reviews. We always usually stay in a place that someone else has stayed in before, and we check the reviews, make sure that there's no like shady reviews. There have been some places that we didn't stay at because there were reviews on freecampsites.net that said, hey, this was a little weird. So we skip those. You can stay near other campers if that helps you feel a little bit more comfortable. To be honest, we like our solitude. However, we also prefer to be someplace where it's a known camping area where there are other rigs. There's a rig way back here, and across the street there's a ton of rigs. We just came across the way so that we could be out of the way a little bit, but I do feel comfortable knowing that we are in an area where people do camp. If you are staying on state trust land, you will need a permit. So make sure that you are safe to stay there, as in legally allowed to stay in the place that you are staying. The ability to leave quick is another thing under safety. We make sure that we stay someplace that if we felt like we ever needed to hook up and leave, that we could do so easily. That means we park in such a way that we can pull the rig right out, and we generally try to stay places that we won't be sunk in the mud, that we wouldn't get stuck in that spot if we tried to move at any point. So we're hoping this rain passes soon. We haven't experienced quite as wet of a boondocking experience as we are here in Arizona currently. Okay, I think I've asked all the questions and it's starting to rain. This weather is so bizarre. We are enjoying boondocking. We look forward to boondocking for the remainder of our contract. We will be bouncing all over the place, so stay tuned. We do have a boondocking guide. We'd love for you to check it out. You can check it out up here. We mark every place that we stay. We have a little blog about each one, what we thought, and in some cases, if it was a long-term boondocking site, we'll even tell you where we got our water and propane and groceries and all of that jazz. So make sure and go check it out and go enjoy some boondocking. All right, that's it for today. I'm freezing. We will see you out there. I want to show you this. Look at this. That was from where John was parked. He did have to get out this morning to go to work. I know my generator's really loud, but you have to see this. There's snow over these mountains over here. Look at this.